So, incoming President Donald Trump in the United States has issued a fresh tariff threat to India in a press briefing with reporters, which just took place a while back. President-elect Donald Trump, standing alongside his incoming Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, said that America would be looking to impose reciprocal taxes or tariffs on countries that impose high import duties on American goods. He specifically mentioned India by name. We have that bite for you right now. Let's play it and then let's discuss what he's talking about.
We're going to be treating people very fairly. But the word reciprocal is important because if somebody charges us, India, we don't have to talk about own. If India charges us 100% and we charge them nothing for the same, they send in a bicycle and we send them a bicycle, they charge us 100 and 200. India charges a lot. Brazil charges a lot. If they want to charge us, that's fine, but we're going to charge them the same thing.
That's a big worried thing. About tariff.
The senators, some of them aren't necessarily business people.
So there you have it, the incoming president of the United States talking about something that he has mentioned a lot in the past, which is reciprocity, Indian tariffs, and how he sees India as a tariff king and an abuser of the international trade system. Really, with Donald Trump, you have to understand that trade is his one major political obsession, where he believes that countries are taking advantage of America by raising import tariffs and making it harder and more expensive for American companies to export goods to other countries. But at the same time, those countries expect to take advantage of the free market that America has and export their goods into the American market with very little tariff. So this is an inequality that Trump has taken note of, and he is someone who very much has made this a forefront or a key political objective for his election campaigns going back all the way to 2016. But even further back, if you listen to Donald Trump, his views on tariffs and trade, really from the 1980s onwards, he's had this view that many countries around the world are taking advantage of America by taxing American goods when they come into their markets, but they expect to be allowed to export to American markets very, very freely and with very minimal tariffs. So again, let's focus on what Donald Trump has said right now. He said the word reciprocal is important because if somebody charges us, and then he mentions India specifically, if India charges us 100% tax, do we charge them nothing? So his view very clearly was that if India wants to charge us high import tariffs, that's fine, but we will also be charging the same thing. And then his Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, said reciprocity is going to be key, which is that if countries treat us a particular way, they should expect to be treated a similar way by us. So very, very clearly, Donald Trump making clear that India's high tariffs are going to be something that he's going to take an exception with. This has a long history. He has made a number of statements repeatedly in the past about even during his first tenure as president. He made several comments about India. You might recall, I think 4 or 5 years ago, when he was talking about India as being one of the highest taxing nations and mentioning, and this has become, of course, a bit of a recurring theme with Donald Trump. He mentioned the Harley-Davidson motorcycles, that when Harley-Davidson tries to export its motorcycles to India, they face a 100% tariff, and he said this is unacceptable. We want to push against this, and he has in the past also pushed on this. For example, there were several cases filed at the World Trade Organization between India and the United States over the last couple of years on issues of tariffs and trade. Some of them, of course, were settled in 2023 when Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to America for a state visit. Also, you had America under Donald Trump remove India from the generalized system of preferences, the GSP. This was a scheme that allowed certain developing countries to export certain goods to America tariff-free. Trump removed India from that scheme, and even the Biden administration has not restored India to that GSP scheme, and it affected, I think, around $5 to $6 billion worth of exports that India had to the United States. So Donald Trump has shown in the past that he can walk the talk when it comes to this issue, when it comes to this issue of India as slapping tariffs that he sees as too high on American goods. You could also find that over the years, really consistently, Donald Trump has harped on this issue of India having extremely high tariffs. He recently called India a tariff king. When he was running for election in September 2024, he actually said that India is a very big abuser of the tariff and trade system. He's, of course, also said that he greatly admires Prime Minister Narendra Modi and has a good relationship with him, but has been very consistent that while he respects India's leadership as well as the Indian government, as well as what India is trying to do. He also has serious problems with India's trade and tariff system, and this is something that has had a resonance in India as well. We in fact spoke to some top economists in India a while back about this, and they are also pointing out that in India, at least over the last couple of years, tariffs have increased substantially across the board. This is being seen as a wider push towards protectionism. So the average tariffs in India have increased over the last couple of years, and that is something that Indian economists have also pointed to, saying that actually this is something that is going to harm Indian competitiveness in the long term, because you want competition. Sometimes you need foreign competition to make sure that your domestic firms are also extremely competitive. So that is something that has been talked about in the Indian economy as well. And now Donald Trump, of course, raising this concern when it comes to the Indian economy as well as the impact it will have. There have been a number of studies that have talked about the average tariffs that India has been charging. The average tariff in India, if my memory serves me correctly, was around 5% in 2013 to 2014, and then it went up to around 17% as of 2024. So it's been a fairly large increase, and people have talked about this as sort of a reversal of the liberalization of the 1990s, because there you had reducing import duties, you had more foreign competition come into India. However, now of course you're seeing a move towards some protectionism, because you of course want India to develop its own domestic industries, but nevertheless there are constituencies here in India as well as abroad, of course, who are going to push on this. And the question now is, what is India going to do on the issue of trade? Will it make certain concessions to the United States to keep the broader strategic relationship afloat? How will that continue? So we're not exactly sure at this point in time, but again, as I was saying, there has been this concern that has been raised in India about, since 2014, there have been really thousands of tariff increases. I believe one report saying that there have been over 3,200 tariff increases in India since 2014. The system of tariff increases and so on and so forth has also been seen to be erratic, and that also impacts foreign competition and foreign firms trying to do business in India and selling into the Indian market. India's tariffs are also considered to be higher than many competitive countries that it has to compete with, including Vietnam, including Bangladesh, including China. And this is seen again as a detriment to international competition coming into India and competing with Indian companies, and also helping make Indian companies much more competitive on the international market. So there's two streams of thought here, of course. One, that this could lead to some broader tensions between India and the United States, because of course now the two sides have a $200 billion trade relationship, and relations in the last months of the Biden administration have been slightly unsettled, depending on where you stand. Some may say largely unsettled, but some may say also that there has been some impact of, first of all, the Pannu and Niger cases on the bilateral relationship, as well as what we're seeing with the developments in Bangladesh that took place in August. So the bilateral relationship is slightly shaken at this point in time. It's on a slightly weaker wicket than it was. This is not to say that, of course, the relationship is disturbed to a large extent, but there are concerns, and there is a view that, if Donald Trump comes out swinging with tariffs and puts a lot of economic pressure on the Indian establishment, that will put further strain on the strategic relationship. There is that view, but others also believe that, look, this is something that India will be pragmatic on, and will try to see whether a beneficial deal is to be had with the United States to keep the broader relationship much more stable, because they know that this is a bugbear that is of a great concern to the US president, and therefore whether for the sake of the broader relationship a deal can be looked into. That is certainly one view, and there's another view, of course, among Indian economists, and something that you will see on social media quite a bit, which is a lot of people saying that, look, this kind of pressure is good, because there has been a drift towards higher tariffs and higher protectionism in India, and it makes us uncompetitive, and it makes us slightly more hostile to working closely with foreign entities, and India should largely move towards a more liberalized economy. That is the view, and this sort of pressure from Donald Trump will help push India towards that path of lower tariffs. So there are different views as to how this will impact the bilateral relationship, but India and America have handled tensions when it comes to the economic side of the relationship before. I remember the generalized system of preferences that I was mentioning. Those issues were handled fairly reasonably well in the relationship, did not in any way derail some of the cooperation on China, on the Quad, on strategic defense technologies, that did not impact things in a really important way. So that is something that will give heart to, I think, people who want the India-US relationship to continue. So again, pointing out that Donald Trump, again, making clear, standing next to his Commerce Secretary, incoming Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, that actually India is very much at the top of his agenda when it comes to trade, when it comes to tariffs, and that India will have to accept reciprocal treatment if it treats US firms with high tariffs. That is something that India's economic policy making bureaucracy as well as the foreign policy bureaucracy will definitely have to pay close attention to, because of the broader impact that it has on the India-US relationship, given the fact that there have been economic tensions in the past, that there have been World Trade Organization disputes against export subsidies and so on and so forth. There have been retaliatory tariffs as well. You might remember at one point in time that India had, that Donald Trump had in 2018 launched tariffs on steel and aluminum in March of 2018, and then India had also had raised a dispute at the World Trade Organization in that very same year, and he said that, and India argued these were unjustified tariff claims. America had made a national security argument, and India said this was completely unjustified. And like I said, also there was in 2019 there was the removal of the GSP status from India, and so definitely there were outstanding WTO disputes which were resolved in 2023 under the Biden administration. So, but regardless of that, the broader strategic relationship was stable under Donald Trump. So again, something that India will have to watch closely, these threats coming from Donald Trump, what it will mean in terms of the kinds of tariffs that India can expect, whether a deal can be made, what kind of concessions will India have to make if it wants to make concessions. But really, while that is definitely a concern, it does seem that broadly there is a lot of admiration for India in the incoming US government, with Secretary of State Mark Rubio, as well as National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, as well as Tulsi Gabbard, who is going to be the Director of National Intelligence, as well as with President Trump himself. So this does not seem likely to derail the bilateral relationship, but definitely something that the two countries will have to work together closely on. We will keep you updated with this story, as well as with fresh stories that are coming in about President Donald Trump's transition team, which is, of course, going to take office in the United States on January 20th, 2025. Like I said, we'll keep you updated on those stories as the new administration prepares to take office. Thank you so much for watching us here